It was only a few years ago when lower budget European developed RPGs had a bit of a reputation for featuring a lack of polish and that almighty infamous Eurojank. GreedFall completely blows that stereotype out the water. This is a superb RPG which punches far above its weight, albeit with some elements which are a little rough around the edges. Set in a 17th century styled fantasy setting, you play as de Sardet, a diplomat from the Congregation of Merchants, which is one of the many factions colonising the island of Tir-Fradee. You're tasked with finding the cure for a mysterious Malachor plague. At the beginning of the game, de Sardet can be customised using a fairly basic character creator, allowing the player to select between male or female, various facial options, hair and more. The game's structure is similar to that found in titles such as the excellent Dragon Age Origins. There's no vast open world here. Instead, you'll travel between various cities and open areas. Thankfully, those environments look absolutely stunning. GreedFall is a game with superb art direction, whether it's the first time you're approaching one of the game's main cities or exploring the beautifully crafted streets. Amongst your travels, you come across a range of companion characters, of which 2 can follow you at any given time. French developer Spiders have clearly taken inspiration from the historically excellent companion-focused approach of BioWare's older titles such as Dragon Age and Mass Effect. Whilst the character design in GreedFall throughout is overall a little bit too generic, the actual writing here is excellent. Admittedly, none of the companions reach the levels of Rex, Garrus or Morrigan, but they're still surprisingly enjoyable to share your time with. Each of those companions have personal quest lines which often last hours upon hours with many twists and turns. Not only that, but as you adventure through the world, those companions comment and react out loud based on the decisions that you're making throughout both the main story and the side quests.
You don't seem to like this man.
Rolf doesn't bring back good memories for me.
They even often alter dialogue choices based on the situation at hand. For example, I decided to take Ciora, who's a native, with me to meet the leader of the Bridge Alliance, a faction which is at war with the natives. Despite warnings from both of my companions about how it probably wouldn't be a good idea due to the tensions between the two, I made the choice to go ahead with it anyway because, experiments, etc. The resulting conversation was one with plenty of heated words, but a situation which wasn't as bad as I might have expected. This is just one small example of the myriad of ways in which companion choices can significantly affect your time with the game. It's a brilliant testament to just how strong the game's writing is, particularly considering the development team's small size. I spent countless hours with the game's side quests, of which the vast majority of them were extremely compelling. There's plenty of unexpected twists within these mini storylines spanning multiple hours each. If anything, this aspect of the game was probably the highlight for me. Combat is fairly solid too, far better than you might expect from a smaller budget Euro RPG. I focused my de Sardet on creating a swashbuckling, agility-centric swordswoman, utilising guns as a secondary. There's a standard attack button alongside a kick which places enemies off balance for a follow-up strike, along with the generous ability to dodge and parry attacks. It's kind of similar to the Arkham series combat, only not quite as deep from an action perspective. Whilst it won't blow your socks off, I actually found it to be surprisingly entertaining, particularly when battling human opponents. I played the game on hard difficulty, and enemies throughout were able to take me out in just a few hits. Ensuring that my parries and dodges were on point led to an entertaining fencing style flow to the combat. There's even some decent, albeit light, stealth gameplay thrown into the combat mix for good measure too. At any point you can pause the combat and initiate commands, similar to that found in Dragon Age, only here you're unable to influence your companions whatsoever. Dangerous traps can be placed for enemies to step into, alongside spells such as stasis which lock enemies in place. And the guns in GreedFall are utilised with an almost power weapon setup, featuring limited collectible ammunition. Whilst they do pack a punch, they're not something that you can just mainline, and instead they supplement your chosen combat style. There's plenty of other ways to tweak your character too, with regular skill points to assign as you please into the game's grid-like skill tree, from magic to traps, light and heavy weapons, guns and more. There's also talents which are dished out much less regularly, but they can severely impact both traversal, conversations and quest options. Lockpicking does what it says on the tin. Options such as Vigour give you the ability to pass through areas which require balance, or Science enables the option to craft potions and destroy weak walls with explosive vials, alongside the RPG favourite Charisma, which of course provides alternate dialogue choices. These RPG choices not only impact areas such as combat, but they can significantly influence your range of options during the quests. You could always pick a lock to get through a tough door, or maybe blow the nearby wall out using your science skills. Conversations can be dramatically different when you're able to convince characters to bend to your will thanks to the almighty Charisma. Each quest has multiple ways to complete it. It all comes together to form an excellent range of choices and options available during quests. There's even a surprisingly fantastic crafting system here too. Weapons and armour can all be upgraded with alternate hilts, adornments, straps and more. Each element not only changes the item cosmetically, but it includes statistical bonuses ranging from simple increases to damage or armour to entire skill tree bonuses, such as a key pouch adding a lockpicking +1. It's here where crafting can actually result in tangible impact to your playstyle, allowing you to tweak pieces of armour and weaponry to suit your approach, not just in combat, but the overall game too. Disappointingly, GreedFall isn't without signs of that notorious Eurojank. Characters lip sync during conversation is shockingly bad for a game so focused on conversing. Often so bad that I saw numerous instances of characters' mouths moving during moments where there wasn't any speech. Over time, I gradually did notice it less, but it is nevertheless a shame.
A gesture that your drunkards must have misunderstood.
What makes it even more unfortunate is that the game's voice acting is generally brilliant throughout. There's only a small handful of characters I came across which featured some less than convincing voices. Generally speaking, the quality of the VO work here is surprisingly solid, which when combined with the game's strong writing leads to some great stories being told. I did encounter a few bugs during my lengthy time with the game, from minor issues such as the odd subtitle mistake here and there, to some more serious problems such as crashing to the dashboard, and in one instance mid-combat the game actually outright shut down my console suddenly out of nowhere. Screen tear is fairly prevalent too on my Xbox One X playthrough, that is, particularly early in the game, although thankfully it's not as egregious as some recent titles. That said, visually the game is particularly strong. The game's 17th century tone and design lend itself well to producing some genuinely beautiful moments visually. Whilst character visual design is kinda bland, there's some low resolution textures here and there, but the overall aesthetic of the game is fantastic. The game's music is suitably great too, composed by the excellent Olivier Derivière, who previously worked on A Plague Tale: Innocence, of which I was a huge fan of the music there. Despite a few issues, I have absolutely loved my time with GreedFall. This is an excellent RPG with a team punching far above its weight. Developer Spiders are officially on the map. What these guys could potentially create with more money, time and resources could be something truly exciting. Priced lower than the standard full price titles from a team of over 20 people, GreedFall is an extraordinary feat. Corners have clearly been cut in some parts, such as repeated environments and enemies, but the team have evidently focused their energy on plenty of the areas which really do count. The game's RPG mechanics are superb, rivaling some AAA studios. The game's story and side quests are interesting throughout, alongside an impressive presentation, decent combat and plenty of smart quality of life mechanics, such as the companion camp between area loading screens or quests often allowing you to instant travel to a conclusion point. GreedFall is probably my favourite RPG since the exceedingly brilliant Divinity Original Sin 2 launched back in 2017. If you're a fan of games such as Dragon Age Origins but don't mind a few rough edges, you'll find a hell of a lot to like here. GreedFall is undeniably worth buying, punching way above expectations in a multitude of ways. Despite releasing during a busy period, don't sleep on this one. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell button for notifications when we upload further videos. It really helps the channel a lot.